Now, I was going to get into the meat and potatoes of the actual, if it's going to be guilty, not guilty on Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't want to get into too many details of, whether the performance of the prosecution or the performance of the defense, if it was good, it was, the tactics, the strategies. I do think that the case should come down to one simple fact. The simple fact will come down to that first shooting. Was the first shooting justified or not? There were 3 shootings. Rittenhouse shot 3 people. And what I suggest to you is that the first shooting is the one that is the only one that really matters, actually. Because if the first shooting is justified, then the second and third have to be justified, because at that point he's defending himself from an angry mob that's attacking him for defending himself. If the first shooting is self-defense and a mob tries to disarm him and attack him, well, the other 2 are definitely going to be found self-defense. Not to mention, just logically speaking, a jury that finds the first shooting to be self-defense, of course they're going to find the other 2 to be self-defense. But logically, that makes sense as well. It's not just that's what a common person would find, but that's also logical, I think, because the first shooting, what it comes down to is if you show up somewhere and you unjustifiably shoot someone or stab them or beat them up, and people jump you to stop you, you can't claim self-defense. Now, this is both a legal argument and a logical argument. Legally and logically, if you initiate a fight, if you initiate a fight, or if you escalate violence, you're not going to be able to use self-defense when when a bystander jumps in and tries to disarm you or tries to stop you. I mean, just think about it. You see 2 people fighting on the side of the road. One of them pulls out a knife. You jump in to stop him from stabbing him, and he stabs you, claiming self-defense because you attacked him. In fact, you did initiate the contact with the gentleman. Well, that self-defense isn't going to hold up, unless he was actually in self-defense with the first guy. That's logical and legal. Now, so they really, the prosecution probably should make that very, very clear in closing. That, hey, listen, the first shooting was Rittenhouse the aggressor, because if he was the aggressor, if he was the one who initiated the fight, of course, self-defense isn't going to work on that first one. And there's a lot of different angles, and you'd have to get into a lot of different angles as to why Rittenhouse might have been the aggressor in that first altercation, or that the first shooting. And one of the most important ones is that Rittenhouse illegally brought a gun to the location, right? If you illegally bring a gun into a club and get in a fight and end up shooting somebody in self-defense, a very good question is like, well, why did you bring the club? You brought a gun into a situation. Why? You brought the gun because you thought you would use it. When you brought the gun, you thought you would use it. Did you think you would be bringing a gun for self-defense? And if you did bring a gun because you thought you were going to be bringing it for self-defense, doesn't that give you an ace in your back pocket in order for you to get into confrontations with people? If you start showing the gun to everybody, doesn't that kind of invite the fight? Doesn't that invite the confrontation? If you bring a gun out into a crowd, wouldn't someone possibly want, that's an interesting conversation. Now, I don't have a good answer for that, actually. I don't know. I think it comes down to the facts, all the facts that the jury hears. I think it's an interesting question. If you illegally bring a gun across state lines, if you illegally possess a gun in the state of Wisconsin, does that necessarily mean that you're initiating the confrontation? Probably not. But either way, whatever the facts are on that first fight, or altercation, whatever you want to call it, when he shot that man, was it in self-defense? If it was in self-defense, the other 2 are going to be found self-defense. If it was not in self-defense, then I don't think the other 2 can possibly be found to be self-defense. I think it's all or nothing. I think he's going to be all 3 guilty or all 3 not guilty. I will say this though. An interesting argument an interesting argument that the jury might consider or might not consider, but an interesting argument to bring up to them would be, say, listen, we're here to decide what kind of society we want to live in. You know what I'm saying? Do you want to live in a society in which bystanders can attack a person with a gun if they think he's an active shooter? That's a complicated question, and I don't have a clean answer for it. But in your town, if you hear gunshots go off and you see a dude, that just shot somebody, and people are like, hey, he just shot this man, and you want to be a hero and stop an active shooter, you jump in to try to disarm him. Do you think that person should have the protection of the law? Should you be protected as not an aggressor? Or if you try to disarm an active shooter, will you possibly be shot and the shooter is using self-defense? If you're in a school, gunshots go off and you go tackle the guy with the gun and he shoots you, was that self-defense? It's a complicated question. After a shooting, do you have any obligation to let bystanders know, like, hey, I'm not, I'm not an active shooter, So yeah, interesting question. I don't know that that's actually going to be resolved by the Rittenhouse case, but I do think that first shooting is the one that matters.